from different centers also in hybrid mode, from Noida Site 3, from Chennai, from Bengaluru, and some people from home as well. So welcome again to all of you.
Let me take a moment to welcome once again all of you, those who joined in person and virtually. Welcome once again everybody. And today it's my honor and privilege to host yet another Power Hour session with all of you. Now without further ado, I would like to introduce my esteemed panelists for today. So our first panelist, she is a global speaker at the UK House of Lords Women Economic Forum and many such forums. She brings on table an experience of more than 2 decades, and she's also a global brand and business consultant. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Devapriya Khanna. Devapriya, please. Our next panelist, a former journalist, an expert and wealth of knowledge and experience in PR, communications and marketing. She is also heading the North India region for London and Partners, and she also represents Mayor of London's office in India. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Abhirasha Malik. Now, the final panelist. Any guesses? How many sports enthusiasts we have? Okay. So all of you can connect with the panelists separately to learn a few punches. So please put your hands together for Poonam Beniwal. She needs no introduction, a national champion and a boxing expert. And now I would like to invite my colleague Ishika Nanda to kindly host the session, moderate the session. Ishika brings wealth of knowledge and experience in social media and digital marketing. Please join your hands for Ishika.
Thank you everyone for joining us. We will start the fireside chat now, and I will start with you, Poonam. So my question to you is, reflecting on your journey as a boxing coach, what lessons have you learned that you believe are universally applicable to women striving to make their mark in the business world?
Hi everybody. As far as sports is concerned, and especially as far as boxing is concerned, I've been a boxer, I've been a national coach, I represented India in Olympics, Commonwealth Games, Asian Games. The only lesson I learned from boxing is, as Muhammad Ali used to say, champions are not made in the gyms. They are made something they have deep inside them, a desire, a vision, a dream. But have to have the stamina, skill, will, but their will must be greater than skill. So it's the willpower when you have to take the decision in do and die situation. So it's applicable in business as well. We as boxer and boxing coaches represent India. We box at international stage. This is 3 minutes 3 round. We have to take decisions within seconds. Same situation sometimes arises in business as well. So it's like decision-making capacity with us.
Thank you so much, Poonam. So the next one is for you, Abhirasha. So in your experience, what role does international collaboration and networking play in the success of businesses, and how can it be further leveraged?
Firstly, good morning everyone. Thank you to Sopra Steria. Thank you, Tarun, to your team for having me here. Part of a very esteemed panel to share my thoughts. Coming to the question, Ishika, when we talk about networking, when we talk about the sort of business ecosystem or international collaboration that can play for businesses, for anyone, be it any gender, whether they're women-led or men-led. I think the very fact that we are all really without boundaries, and when I say that, I mean in terms of whether it is your clients, whether it is your resources, whether it is your talent, it is what you're seeking, and you're seeking it without any perspective of boundaries. So when you're doing that, the one way forward and how your collaboration helps is that you are also treating each other at par, not just across their genders, but also, irrespective of the domains that you come from. So I think that sort of collaboration and that sort of networking is very, very helpful as we go forward.
What inspired you to pursue a career in business? And how do you believe your journey has contributed to redefining traditional notions of business growth?
Okay, I'd also like to begin by saying good afternoon to all of you, and thank you very much, Soprasteria. Thank you, Tarun. Thank you, Ishika, for having me here, and really amazing to be with these power women on this power hour. So with that, Ishika, I call myself an accidental entrepreneur because I've had 18 years in the corporate world and I was very happy as a corporate person. There was really no plan to become an entrepreneur, but personal circumstances and whatever, because of which I had to pivot to entrepreneurship. Now that I'm an entrepreneur, I absolutely love it. Why do I love it? Because when I look back on my corporate journey, I realized that I've been starting up brands and launching brands under the umbrella of big corporate names. So, I brought in Nestle to India, launched ICICI Prudential, launched Carlsberg. So, I've had a lot of launches. So, somewhere I think that entrepreneurial spirit was already ingrained in me. Now, when I found myself to be an entrepreneur, I realized that I wanted to do something a little different. I didn't just want to be an ex-corporate marketer who jumped off the corporate bandwagon and became a brand consultant. So I charted new territories. I sort of realized what I want to do differently. So I took up, branding individuals and helping individuals stand aside and stand apart and get visibility. Because businesses these days are no longer B2B and B2C. They are age to age, human to human. So we buy if we know, like, and trust the people that we're doing business with, and which is why I'm working with individuals and training and helping companies, leaders, and individuals really to become strong personal brands became my mission, I think, in a way. So aligning my purpose with what I did was a very big thing. Secondly, during the pandemic, I launched an accelerator and an ecosystem which helped women-led businesses, career women to grow in the India-UK business corridor. That's something, again, was aligned to my purpose. So what I've seen is that if, for me, aligning my why, aligning my purpose with what I did as my job was very, very important, and that's what helped me become an entrepreneur. Now, coming to the second part of your question, Ishika, where you asked me about how I've been able to bring some stereotypes and chart different territories. Traditional notions of business, and especially for a woman in business, is very, very different. There are very fixed notions. So I broke a lot of myths. I've been quite fearless and disruptive that way. The first myth that I broke was bootstrapped women founders cannot expand internationally. Okay, so this was something that people used to say that, you're bootstrapped, why don't you raise some funds? If you want to go global, you're thinking too big, But I said, okay, I'm going to do it. So today I have an office in India, I have an office in London. We're hopefully going to expand into a few more countries in 2024. So that's one myth I disrupted. Then I was told that first let the clients come and then you build a team. I did it the other way around. I hired people and then the clients came, because you're sitting on fixed costs, so you have the business has to come. There's pressure on that. And I was told networking is a waste of time, especially for a woman. I've built my businesses based on networks. You heard Abhilasha talked about it, the power of networking. And the last thing that the myth that I broke, and hopefully I'll break many more myths going forward. But what I broke was the whole notion that women may not have it all. I stand as a woman who has had it all. I have it all. Maybe not all at the same time, but yes, we can have it. So that's my humble.
Thank you so much. So now it's going to be a very interesting question for you, Poonam. So as a dynamic husband-wife duo, have you ever been tempted to settle a disagreement through a friendly boxing match? And if so, who would you throw the first punch and who would come out victorious in the ring?
It's every day. So it's like he's from boxing background. He's Olympian, Commonwealth Games medalist, Arjuna Hardy. He's working as ACP in Haryana Police. So it's like when it comes to discussion on boxing, when it comes to discussion on taking care of family, I'm the person to start and I'm the person to finish. So because I'm taking care of my kids, so doing the job as a senior development officer in Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports. It's quite hectic and busy. And I'm leading the power sports, boxing, weightlifting and wrestling. So discussions came on, so when I give my point of view and he gives his point of view, it comes to a constructive discussion. And we are women, so I know how to take initiative, how to keep my head on, so it's always win-win situation for me.
So, next one is for you, Natasha. What's the craziest decision you have made that turned out to be surprisingly successful?
Well, that's a lovely question. I hope you all have time. Because every single decision in hindsight was the craziest ever. But I think it's the craziest decisions of your life that yield everything that you have in life. Because we often look at growth as linear. We often look at paths that have been carved as, life is one step after the other. Actually, life is a lot of dancing from one pedestal to the other. You will hop and skip and jump and miss, and then you will rise again. So, without being too preachy about this, but really just saying that a lot of decisions, whether it was deciding not to be an entertainment head back when I was in News Channel, whether it was deciding to say I'm not going to be an anchor because I like to be out in the sun with my camera because I get to learn the most there. Whether it was saying, now I will leave journalism into public relations. So from one decision to the other, I think I was taking things, the way I was feeling. A lot of things you will feel instinctively. You will be able to preempt. It's like a dialogue from my favorite film, $1 Million Baby, where the woman boxer, she says, you risk for a dream that only your eyes can see and nobody else. And I think that sort of risking crazy decisions make life what it is, right?
So Devapriya, this is for you. Being the captain of a pirate ship, sailing the seas of entrepreneurship, what treasure have you discovered along your journey that has been the key to unlocking hidden growth opportunities?
Very interesting question. Actually, it has been quite a choppy journey and nice to visualize myself as the pilot of a ship like that. I would say that the biggest treasure that I have excavated and unearthed has been the treasure of relationships. The word that I use these days is no longer ROI, which is return on investment, but ROI, which is return on relationships. Because if you build relationships with the giver's heart without really thinking about what you're going to get in that interaction, you really are able to collaborate and partner with some of the most incredible people that you'll come across. And I often like to say that building relationships, you should approach it like a farmer who sows the seeds of the relationship and not like a hunter who's out for the prey. And when you're sowing the seeds, you probably don't realize what sort of plants will grow or what the crop will look like, but you're doing it in full faith and doing it because you want to raise that crop. I think for me that's been one of the biggest learnings. In fact, one of the advisors on when I launched Connexus, she's a big name in Leeds, and one day she called me and she said, look, I know I don't come for the board meetings and this and that, but karna kya hai, itna bata do, mujhe karna kya hai. So I said that we want to expand into the UK, so ठीक है, leave it with me. She's really a very down to earth kind of person, but really up there. One fine day she calls me and she said, you want to speak at the House of Lords? I'm like, what? She said, no, you're going to speak at the House of Lords and you're going to be alongside alongside Anne-Marie Jervin, we all know. She was drafting the FD at that time. I had Lord Billy Moria, I had the High Commissioners of Bangladesh, India, all the South countries, Sri Lanka. And she just did it for me because, I asked. So, along with building the network, put your ego aside and just ask for what you want. And that was really the turning point of Connexus, because we got a platform like that and met the people that would actually give a life to Connexus in the UK. That's how Connexus was born in the UK. So that was real treasure. Secondly, what I've seen is that adaptability, flexibility, and resilience is something that again stands as real treasure. And thirdly, looking at your crew, the visualization of a pirate ship, you need to empower and enable your crew to take calculated risks. Much like a crew on choppy waters, they take risks, and the business landscape is choppy. But empower your crew to take calculated risks and really lean forward and not depend on you for everything. These are the three things that have helped me to, as you say, be the pirate of the ship, leading a team across choppy waters.
Thank you for sharing your insights. So I'm going to change the sequence. So you can hold the mic, please. So, share a hilarious moment from your entrepreneurship journey that left you laughing inside but taught you a valuable lesson.
There have been so many very, very hilarious moments. Let me just talk about something that happened recently. It was very embarrassing. I won't say it was hilarious at that point. I was just hoping that the ground would open and I would go into it. But we had gone for a pitch to a prospective client, and we really wanted that client on board. Sorry, my team had also gone with me. And normally I enable my teams to make the pitch. So the CEO was there, young, dashing young man. He was there, and so this team member of mine, in full enthusiasm, started everything. First 15 minutes went very well, with the context and all. And then we started talking about the target audience. Who should be your ideal target audience? So this guy, my team member, he looks at the CEO and he says that it's very important to build a client persona. What should your client look like? Imagine that person. Now, for example, give your ideal client persona a name. Your dream client. Let's say we call her Monica, and he looks at her and looks at the gentleman, and the man's expression changes. There's dead silence all across, and I'm wondering what's going on. And I get a sticky note saying that Monica is the name of his ex-wife, and this is not going the right way. So we kind of stepped in, changed it from dream client to your most difficult client, and we continued. Learnings that we took away from it is that be really prepared and do a lot of research into the kind of people that it's not just about getting a good pitch out there. You really need to know who you're speaking to. Do your research very well. Secondly, humor is something that is the savior of every entrepreneur. I think in any situation, when you're in a sticky situation, use humor. And thirdly, just sort of engage in communication. Later, I just took him aside and I said that really embarrassing moment. Very sorry about that, but I'm just in the humor in it. He was like, okay, great, this is fine. We got the account. So it seemed to be mortifying at that point, but it was actually hilarious in hindsight. It brought a lot of lessons.
Thank you. So, Abhilasha, this is for you. Be leaders, how can we create a supportive ecosystem that empowers women leaders to thrive, take risks, and lead with confidence in a rapidly changing business environment?
Right. So I think I consider myself as an example because I represent an organization where we take great pride. Our MD is a woman, Janet Coyle, our CEO, Laura Citro. But more than that, our mayor himself will not be at a table which does not have at least 50% women representation, and we take great pride in it. Also the fact when you talk about creating that ecosystem, which can first make women thrive. Now for somebody to thrive in any chosen field, that means what they have for themselves is an absolutely 100% inclusive, warm environment where they will be understood, they will be heard, and they will be appreciated. Because then comes the next step of growth in that business, thriving, and now you have to grow further and you have to network better. So any organization that gives you the first three will then put you on the next step where you're now able to chart your growth further. So that means that everybody is very welcoming and is very, very secure to see you shine like a star. Because when one of you shine, we're all shining. So it is that sort of an organization where, and not just this is what we do internally, but I'd also like to speak of the kind of, system that we create for our women founders. And we've run programs in the past. We've run programs where we've identified 15 founders and startup founders. Everybody was earlier mentioned about the funding, and London Partners as an organization does identify that gap. That there is a certain percentage which will show that yes, the initial funding, the seed stage funding for women founders is excellent. It's great. It's right there. But it's the Series A which reduces, and then the Series B which further goes down. Those are genuine statistics which were identified by London Partners, and we continuously work on those. So we run programs. This was something that was run back in 2021. We continue to empower women-led businesses in our best capacity by creating not just ecosystem where they feel comfortable, but also giving them exactly what they need at every step along the way. And we've had some great companies who are thriving today in the UK, whether it be an Upgrad or any of these, which are really doing very well. It started with women-led businesses. So yes, an absolute vote of honor and pride, and I think my privilege there.
So, Poonam, this question is for you. In your experience coaching athletes from diverse backgrounds, how do you think embracing diversity and inclusion can drive innovation and creativity in a business leadership?
See, as far as coaching is concerned, it's an art. It's not like you read something from a book and you just deliver. It's an art. In coaching, you just identify the talent. Then you have to get the latent talent of that kid at the high performance stage. So it's not the overnight work. So making an athlete Olympian and Olympic medalist, it takes around 10,000 hours of hard work. It's like 7 to 8 years from grassroots to development, and then development to high performance stage. So it's when I was coaching, when I was the head of Indian women and men boxing team. So morning training, after that morning training, there was in my mind what we need to do for the progression of that boxer. So it's very innovative. There are hardships as well. Sometimes you have to take hard decisions. Okay, so it's a boxer is not performing in lower weight category. We should increase the weight. And then to convince that boxer, okay, it's not, and convincing the boxers like Maggie Kom, Dicker, okay, it's not good in that weight category, you just come down to this weight category. And when there is neck-to-neck competition, same applies for the business as well. You might have taken some hard decisions, and to take decision to convince the people, convince your team, it's like going to be very fruitful for you. Sometimes it becomes fruitful, then it's good for you and your team. When it don't become fruitful, then you should take the responsibility, not the team, because you convince the people. So in that art, it's learning which makes you to a good coach. And because of that skills only, from the boxing background, right now in India there is no one from the boxing background working as a senior development officer in Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports. I'm a shifting scholar. So our DG said you have experience, you have knowledge, you have been a boxer. So I'm working as senior development officer and looking after all these things and making India proud to get Olympic medals. So it's like innovative ideas. So
mic. So my last question to you is, in the spirit of boxing, if you had to pick one famous figure to step into the ring with, who would it be and why?
My husband. Reason for that, we were in fall in love with each other. So ours is love marriage. So he's from a Brahmin family. I'm from Jat family. It was very difficult, decision for my family. It was 13 years back. So he was working as a area commercial manager in railways, ACM. So he was supposed to get the promotion to DCM. So my Dadaji asked in Haryana, "Chora kya kar raha hai?" It means ladka kya karta hai? My father asked how to convince him. So he said, because that time government offered him as a DSP post. He said, "Oh, DSP in Haryana police." My Dadaji, "Theek hai." And he did not join the DSP because he was working as ACM. Then my father phoned me up. I was in England that time doing my MSc. I have talked to my father was my good friend that time, and now as well. So my father said, I have told my father he is DSP and what to do now. Then I said, no worries, I will make him to convince. And my husband don't like this belt joke, like policing, the Jahin like that. Then my husband said, for you everything okay, I'll tell the police. So he is a kind of boxer. He used to play counter boxing. I was aggressive boxer. So you ask me whom to like. He is always my good partner. So with him, I would like to have the two hands sitting.
So Abhilasha, as a VP for London and Partners, if London were to represent it as a superhero in the business world, what superpower would it possess to empower women-led businesses globally?
Right. I did give this one a think. But I think a superpower that we take great pride in having and possessing, and I think it would come from Spider-Man. Just put a web anywhere. The great pride and strength of the web, the network, not just like they've initially said, you're not just connected because you have a certain goal to meet. You're connected because you're aligned. You're aligned in aspirations, in goals, in thought process, in working not just for the organization, but the climate, for country, for the world at large. So I think the superpower then would be Spider-Man.
So Devpriya, in your experience, what unique challenges have women entrepreneurs faced in breaking ground and forging new path in the business world? And how have you overcome them?
I think quite a bit of it has already been covered. I think for women, of course, it is about the funding gap that Abhilasha talked about. The gap that exists between funders and founders in this case, as we call it within Connexus. It's on one hand you have the pressure to really scale. We talk about scaling across borders as well, but when you're bootstrapped, it becomes very difficult. So honestly, we need to do a lot more to be able to get to close the gap between funding and the founders. Secondly, I think women in general find it difficult to reach out to mentors. Build the entire infrastructure and ecosystem around, so we don't really very easily ask for help. not just about entrepreneurship, but it's about working women in general. Whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're representing an entrepreneurship organization, or whether you're working for a corporate. The problem is that we women come in our own way, and there's a very powerful visual, that always stays with me ever since I've seen it. It's of this very powerful big black horse, and that horse has a plastic chair tied to it with a thin rope. The horse doesn't know that or the mare in this case doesn't know that she just needs to take a step forward, and that chair does nothing on the power that she has. She can easily move forward, but because she's so conditioned to being tied, she's just standing there. So we women, we come in our own way, and I think we just need to drop that imposter syndrome that we suffer from, the overthinking that we suffer from. And imposter syndrome is a very big voice in our head. It's the biggest voice in our head. No matter whether we are starting on our professional journey, or whether we reach the heights of where we want to be, that voice comes up every now and then that, you know what, you're not good enough. So I think as women, we just need to stop getting curtailed or, getting stopped by our own mindset and by our own lack of emotional intelligence and lack of emotional empathy towards our own selves. The theme for this time, Zaida in 2024 was Invest in Women, Accelerate Progress, and that's what the UN had shut it out. I would do a flip on that, and I would say that women, invest in your own selves, in your own growth, in your own ability, in your own networks, in your own skills, in your own personal brand. Invest in yourselves, and that's when you become absolutely unstoppable. And I try and do that myself as much as possible. Just wanted to talk about this, when we say we stand in our own ways and the voice in the head, a lot of thinking that goes, as women, that goes through you. But I think that's also where mentorship comes into play. And, as all of us were here, we started our careers around, I was 19 when I first stepped into a newsroom. It was a very different world. And now when I look at the mentors that we have today, with all due respect, back then even in journalism, the mentors that we had were very senior journalists. The advantage, take it or like it or leave it, was that, and we took it as an advantage, was that you were a journalist first. Man later, woman later. A journalist first. So that was a very professional domain. It didn't matter whether you were in a protest, whether you were anywhere, you were first a journalist. Now in that came some great mentorship. Sometimes it did, and other times it didn't. But we were also a generation where we didn't have too many women mentors. But I have a lot of respect for the fact that yes, when our senior male members or senior journalists who were mentoring us were also extremely good at understanding and at handholding. And I see this today also. I take the example of a great team over here, who invited us, the mentorship that I see, within the team, with Tarun, the rest of his team, and I think it's fantastic. I mean, if I could turn back time, I would say, this is great. Wish we had more of that back then, but mentorship has a massive role to play for any woman who's trying to every day build that life, balance that life, build it, whether it's coming from a man, it's coming from a woman, but mentorship at the heart of it. That's one thing that I sort of mentioned is that women don't step up and ask for mentorship. A lot of it is now available. Organizations are doing a lot within the organization as well. They're doing a lot of it. It needs to be available. We need to stand up and ask for it more and more.
Okay, thank you so much. Now we are going to move to the Q&A sessions. So, if anybody has any questions, please.
I have many questions. How many questions I can ask? So my name is Pankaj. I would spend time thinking. We can do it later. Quickly, there are two questions. One is about the entrepreneurship. So in industry, now people are talking about women entrepreneurs. My problem is, why people are still creating a debate. Why they are not saying she is an entrepreneur. Why they are saying, you might have observed that, right? I've experienced it. One of my friends, we were working on different ventures, so I took her along in one of the customers, and the customer was introducing to his team, and he mentioned she meet one entrepreneur, Pankaj, and another woman entrepreneur, and then suddenly I think the CHRO came into picture and he mentioned why we are differentiating, and I think that was a message, but I have not seen it even today. People are talking about it. So have you experienced something like that?
I think you deserve a standing applause for asking this question. It's something that we seem to address day in and day out. And I think, more and more, so we need male allies like you who's talking about this a lot. Why do we have a gender tag to entrepreneurship or to leader or to anything? What is a woman leader? You're doing the same job. Nobody will call you a man leader.
Yes.
Or nobody calls a man man entrepreneur. So I think it's time for all of us to, firstly, there is awareness about this. A lot of people are talking about this. I see a lot of LinkedIn posts, and myself have done a few LinkedIn posts around this where I said that, can we just drop this tag where we don't attach a prefix to a leader or a gender to a leader or an entrepreneur. We need to raise collective sensibilities. I think when we, as women, are invited to discussions and family discussions on topics which are not business related or not related to just how do you manage work-life balance kind of topics, we should say no to those. We should probably just sort of go and make sure we invited to more fora of this business, and where we have more people, enlightened beings like you, who stand up and ask us questions like this.
And just a quick question for you. See, because you are a coach, right? And as you said, so you're working with the students or the kids from from the level of grassroots to the level of Olympic. Now, people are coming with different talents. Let's say even you have identified that they are going to play boxing, but somebody is hitting hard, punching, the way of punching. I think you know better. I don't know much technicalities, but it is like the strengths are different. You still have to work upon them. One part, of course, as a part of coaching, you're following a routine, but how you are treating them differently so that they can come up with their own strength and they can become successful players.
See, when it comes to high performance stage, Olympics and international stage, we just tone down our general coaching to, this is like individual coaching. Like, I will give 2 examples. Nika, she's competing in 50 kg. She has to tone down her weight, then compete. Lavlina, she's an Olympic medalist. She's competing in 75 kg. So my approach as a coach with Lavlina is different. With Nika is different. Planning is entirely different. Because she has to cut down the weight, she has to maintain the weight. And as far as styles are concerned, there are various styles, like different personalities. You are Sampa, orthodox, counter boxer, you are aggressive boxer. So in that way, I have to use my mind. I have to use my innovation to create the planning for them. So individualized plan for every different boxer over there. So we plan in such a manner, it's like individualized plan for them. And as far as your question concerned with entrepreneurship, I have been a Women Commission member in IVA, it's International Boxing Association. So 5 years I was a member over there. So one day the president came over and he said, chairwoman to our chairperson of the commission. Then I raised the question, being a woman doesn't mean the Women Commission member. I asked the president, you should dissolve this commission. It should be there are various other commissions, RJ commission is there, competition commission is there. So if we are expert as an RJ, just put us in that commission. Then he admitted it's our mistake to create a women commission. Being a woman doesn't mean there should be a women commission. It's not filling the quota. Then he took the decision to dissolve the women commission, and who was the expert in his other field, just put that in other commissions. So I agree with her, being a woman doesn't mean you should be there now.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Good morning, everyone. So my question questions for Devapriya. How do personal branding and building connections give a boost to new entrepreneurs and growing their startups and businesses?
This is a question whose time has come, so I'm really happy that you're enlightened enough to ask this question. So for an entrepreneur, whether it's a man or a woman, we promised not to use those stats, right? Your brand is equal to your reputation and your credibility. Okay, so just to give an example, when I gave up my corporate, I was a marketing director at Carlsberg, and when I was quitting, a lot of people, my teams and all of them, we were like family. They said that you're leaving, we'll also quit. Some vendors also said that we'll not work with Carlsberg anymore. I quit. I started my own my own organization. What do you think happened? Did those people leave? No, they didn't leave. Did the vendors stop working? No. Carlsberg has crores and crores of marketing budget. Why would they stop working? But what happened to me? So because I was a corporate brand, bigger than individuals. What happened to me in my journey and set up my organization? Those people who believed in me, who trusted in me, again that no like and trust factor, KMT factor, they started doing business with me and they didn't really care what my company was called. Whether it was initially it was 200 degrees, now it's Connexus. We've also gone through rebranding journey. But they aligned with me because they trust in me, and if they trust in me, they would like to do business with me. That is nothing but personal brand. People think the misnomer as personal brand is external packaging. It's not external packaging. It's how a founder builds his or her brand inside out. How there's a narrative around it. How the organization and the personal brand values are aligned and how you're talking about it. It's nothing but a sum total of the credibility, visibility, and the reputation of the founder. And that is why when people come and ask me, we don't have budgets, so what should we build first, personal brand or business brand? I tell a founder who's starting up, build your personal brand first. Your business brand will grow automatically. That's why it's so important.
Good afternoon. So my question is to three of you. To you as an individual, to you as a coach. Everybody asks what strategies or what you do when somebody fails at something or how they handle failure. My question is, as an individual in entrepreneurship field in public relations, as a coach as well, how do you handle success? As a coach, you have players who have different statuses, different startups, and different celebrity status they have. So they are very, very successful in having medals and all. So what do you do and how do you handle their success as a coach? And as an individual, what do you do as to handle your success at the highest level?
So I'll start with this one. I think, and because I always said this, because I think life had a different plan, otherwise all I wanted to do was play lawn tennis for this country. I was a hardcore sports person. I did fitness before it became fashion. We grew up in the court. So, and I think when life hit me, and life hits us all, life humbles us all. Every step along the way, every time my one foot slipped, knocking the other one out of the way, I reminded myself that I've learned how to lose. Sports teaches you, and you will agree, it teaches you how to lose. Because winning teaches us nothing. It's the loss. It's losing in life that teaches you. It really depends how you take it. But it's that moment, and from there, when you are successful at something, however small or big, in that moment comes gratitude. And that's the only way you can handle success. With immense gratitude because you've seen that. Right? So I think that is what I do as an individual. But I'll give it to you for more on sports.
See, as far as success is concerned, our job as a coach is like scaffolding. If you see the construction going on over there, so see the scaffolding. It's step by step. If one is wrist, so whole the scaffolding will fall down. When we participate, I always used to teach my students, whether it is married, maker, to everyone. When it comes to participate in sports or in a boxing match, either you win or you learn. When you win, I try to keep my boxers when we are doing seconding outside the ring. If you win, don't get overexcited. You should have that gratitude. Just being a good sports person, just show that gratitude in and outside the ring. When you lose, we as a coach don't jump on. You did so, you did this one mistake, you didn't hit that punch. Let the boxer calm down. Next day, for good analysis, constructive analysis, our team used to sit down and these were the mistakes. We should learn from here and don't repeat it again. So, learning or winning.
What I'd like to add here is that your real success is how you handle your failure. And I don't call it, so I call it failing forward, right? Bouncing forward. There's this whole, imagery around bouncing back, but why don't we call it bouncing forward and failing forward? What are you learning from your failures? As they very, very brilliantly put it. What are you learning and how are you using that learning as a stepping stone to your so-called success? Also, it's very, very important to help, to share your failure stories more than your success stories, so that we spoke about mentorship sometime back, so that now that we're in a position to help others, all of us, all three of us, we're also fulfilling a role by helping youngsters on their way, so that they don't make the mistakes that we have. Let them make their own mistakes, but also empower them to learn that failures are common. Failures are more common than success. So talk more about your failures than your success.
First of all, thank you for an exemplary session. It was wonderful hearing all of you. So I have a very simple question. You guys have a fabulous image in the external world. It's a very great outlook that you're presenting to the external world. My question to you is, how have you prepared your support systems, your core systems for this change? So what was the person who were kind of supporting you in this journey, and how did you kind of prepare them for this change that you were bringing along?
Okay, again, a very, very relevant question for all of us here. I think for a long time, for me, I just built my teams externally, at the workplace, without realizing that my true team lies at home. And that's really the team that has seen me through my entire journey. So for a long time, I was wearing the superhero cape and thinking I'll do it all, I can't do it all, I'm not going to ask this one, I'm not going to that, this one, that one, being my husband, my mother, my mother-in-law, I'll do it myself. And then I realized that it was such a big mistake, because I was getting completely burnt out, and I was completely burnt out. And that's when I realized that I'm so good at delegating, making GDs, training my teams, all of that at work. Why don't I use some of that for my own, to build a team that really is permanent? So I sat down and I applied all those strategies. I actually wrote down what my mom needs to do when I travel, what my husband also has to do at school. I'm not going to be the only PTM mom. There's a PTM parent. He also has to show up. So what does he have to do? What does even the staff in the house have to do? Clearly laid out. My team members call me an Excel maniac, but this also I've plotted like a business strategy, and I just needed to talk to them and enable them as supervise. And it's amazing. It's like we were talking about the importance of asking. The minute I asked, the minute I became vulnerable and I told them that I can't do this myself, so this is what you have to do, this is what you have to do, this is what you have to do, they realized that, and they did it happily, and that system works. So I think, again, we need to apply some of our professional skills Right. So having your house in order is a great stepping stone for success in the outside world. It's true. It's a gender neutral thing. Believe me, it's true for everybody. But that's the logistic side of it, and that's a very, very practical, much needed side of it. But I think emotional support system is very fundamental, and that forms the very core of your support system. On some days, on good days, that emotional support system will look like support from friends, family, in-laws, spouse, everybody. On a bad day, children included, on a good day. On a bad day, that support system can be nobody but you. It will feel like, yes, you are walking, you are the person driving, probably on the other side of traffic, but never mind. Because that is just that. And I think that emotional support system every day is a bit of mind work, is a bit of strengthening of your nervous system. And I say with profound understanding of it, that the stronger you get in, I'm not saying be a one-man army or be a whatever, but what I'm trying to really say over here is that you will have good days. So it's great when it's all in place, just the way you want it, but I think the other days will be a lot. So, just sort of stick to your guns and keep going. Definitely.
See, when it comes to profession, if you become successful professionally, you become successful in profession. Your true success comes when your kids become successful. It means you become a successful mother, then only it's like a satisfaction. So 2 mantras that I follow. Keep in touch with family. Although I'm working, sometimes I have to do other countries, and I just keep in touch with my daughter, my mother. Just talking to them. Thanks to technology, there is Zoom call. Sometimes I have a 12-year-old girl. She creates a Zoom link. Mama, I want to do this mathematical calculation. Just help me. So it's through Zoom we keep in touch. And professionally, trust. As an officer, you just create trust with your seniors and the juniors. So I have got my development officers, I have got my research officers. I have created an environment in my office, like whatever you feel at home, my family just let me know. Because I feel if they will let me know, then God will give me a opportunity that I can tell my seniors. So it's like trust factor profession, and just when you're working, just keep in touch with the family.
Thank you so much everyone for your questions. Now we will have to pause the Q&A session. However, if you have any question, please send us your question and we will definitely share it with our esteemed speakers and definitely we will respond you back. So now I would like to invite Mr. Amit to please come and do the closing note.
I would say, wow, what a wonderful session we just had. Well, this reminds me of some of the recent lines that I encountered and I would like to read it for you. Each time a woman stands up for herself, without knowing it possibly, without claiming it, she stands up for all women. Well, and here we are, the 3 wonderful ladies who have carved their niche in their respective fields, who epitomize the success of women. Ms. Poonam Beniwal shared from her experience about some of the unique traits universally applicable to any woman to be successful in any field. Will should be stronger than skill. What a powerful statement. Like, I don't think it only applies to women, but I think it applies to each and every individual. We learned from Ms. Abhilasha Malik on how can we create a supportive ecosystem that empowers women leaders, or shall I say men also, to thrive, take risks and lead with confidence. We learned from the power of networking, power of mentorship, following your strengths and do what you feel is right. Ms. Devapriya vehemently spoke about her journey of becoming an entrepreneur, navigating through various challenges that she had to face. Accidental entrepreneur and how successful you are. What an inspiring journey, man. Breaking the myths and taking the challenges head on. And we learned some interesting terminologies, edge to edge, human to human. And by the way, I am from talent acquisition, so if you ask any of my team member what is ROR, it's a technology skill. Moving on ways. Now we learn an inspiring terminology, which is even far better, ROR, return on relationship. And I think it's important in each and every field, wherever we are. And of course, we have led from front in the difficult times to be a successful leader. This has been an extremely enriching experience for us and truly has been insightful and inspirational for many to pursue their dreams and keep aspiring for bigger goals. This truly resonates with our culture we have at Sopra Banking Software and Sopra Steria, where women leaders thrive and feel empowered. On behalf of everyone, dear panelists, we would like to express our heartfelt gratitude to each one of you for being here and sharing your experiences and lessons from life. We hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as we did. Indeed. Well, thanks to each one of you present here who have joined remotely and the ones who are present in person for listening to us. And thanks, Rishika, for being a wonderful moderator. Over to you now.
So now I would request Ms. Natasha to please come here and do the felicitation for Ms. Abhilasha Parekh.
Before the felicitation, thank you so much for this brilliant panel discussion, and on behalf of all of us here at Sopra Banking and the teams who've logged in at Sopra Steria, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you here. And Poonam, may you continue to build champions. Abhilasha, may you continue to be the spider superwoman that you aspire to be and continue to fund the businesses. And may you continue to steer the ship as a captain. So thank you to all of you, and thank you to a wonderful team who's been a brilliant audience. Very happily done so, especially when we're celebrating the Women's Day month. But as women, we'd like to believe we don't need a day for celebration. We celebrate womanhood every day. And to all our wonderful male colleagues on the call and here, it wouldn't have been possible without your support. I think thank you for being there for us and for all the care that you have, for your colleagues and your for special ones at home. So thank you so much. And yes, it's a pleasure to do this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now I would request Mr. Sridhar Babu to please come here and do the felicitation for Devipriya Khanna. Thank you. Now I would request Mr. Tarun Singhal to please come here and do the felicitation for Ms. Poonam Beniwal.